Like, no wonder you're constantly feeling overwhelmed. Like, from birth, you were like stacked with this deck of like, I'm gonna have to work harder than 99% of people. Hello, welcome in.
Oh, wow.
Uh, so for first thing, just to get us started, what would you like me to call you?
Um, you know what? I'm gonna leave that completely up to you.
You don't have
Um,
any preference?
no, I really don't.
All right, all right. Well, the first thing that I wrote down in my notebook was Hali, so I'll call you Hali. I may slip up and call you Saber at some point because that's how I originally got to know you. But I'm gonna try for Hali.
Either way is fine. People know me for both, so it's fine.
Cool. All right. So how are you, Hali?
Was struggling a little bit, but overall, I'm okay.
Okay. What are you struggling a little bit with?
My anxiety was or has been a little high over the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
Um, so I've just been kind of trying to handle that more
Gotcha.
than anything.
Cool. And how is the handling of it been going?
There are good days and there are bad days, as there's, for everything. But my good days are really, really good. Especially as of late, and then my bad days actually haven't been as bad as they used to be.
That's awesome. Any
Yeah.
like anything notable that has caused that change that you can think
Oh
of?
yeah, I've been going to the gym.
Oh, physical
Oh
exercise.
my god, I knew when I said that. I knew in my head.
Really?
Here we
Like you
go.
do you really think that that's a big part of what's causing the
No, yeah, absolutely, 110%. I really think so because a lot of things, I'm very self aware.
mm,
So a lot of things that I know I'm going through are caused because of my self confidence issues, which are stemmed from other things that I'm semi aware
for sure.
of, or want to believe I'm aware of. Um, but because at the gym we go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and on Friday we always do weigh in. And at that point, it checks everything. It checks what your current weight is, it checks what your body fat is, and
That's
also
awesome.
checks what your current muscle mass is. So to see every week, even over the past 2 weeks, to see such a dramatic drop for me of first in weight, and then I started going back up in weight, but
It was
I
muscle.
gained, yeah, I gained 2 to 3% of muscle mass in 2 weeks.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
Oh yeah. Feels good.
And I lost about 2% of body fat in 2 weeks.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. So, and then I've also been really working hard on, trying to keep to a good diet and watching what I'm eating, etc. And to have, to have Wolf tell me, like, I noticed ever since we started going to the gym, you've had a lot more energy. Like, you're ready to go. Like, almost as soon as you get out of bed and you start moving, you're ready to go. You're ready to go. You're not as winded as you used to be. Just going up the stairs used to wind me. Like, I
Yeah.
would be catching my breath.
Yeah.
And now I'm just like, ooh, I felt that burn, but I'm okay.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's not well.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's great.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very,
Cool.
very, very happy.
Yeah, I think that you've earned it. Like that's not easy going to the gym and eating well. That's tough.
Not when you have a personal trainer that likes to whip your ass.
That's very true.
And
That's like
I
yeah.
adore him. Well, see you
um.
at this place, and I'll see you tomorrow.
So to dig in a little bit here, one of the things that I've been learning recently that I think is really cool is that I've learned that anxiety is actually sort of like an umbrella term. Like it's something that we use as sort of like a general thing when like either we don't want to talk about the specifics or like we don't know what the specifics are. So I'm curious for you like do you have any specifics of like what 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 the anxiety is? What it
Well,
like anxiety is sort of like a symptom. What's sort of like causing the anxiety?
oh, basically like what brings it on.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be, it's a various of many things, which is why it's considered generalized anxiety, or, just general anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Is because it can be a number of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Usually for me, it has to be, it's stacking up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's really when my anxiety starts kicking in, is when everything starts stacking up on me, or I feel like things are kind of, you know, piling up on me, or the worst ones I get are when nothing is wrong. And that's when my anxiety is the loudest, because for me, I'm always waiting for the next
The other
shoe to
shoe
drop.
to drop.
The other shoe to drop. Exactly. I
Gotcha.
always find myself back in that mindset. And at first it was very, very hard to try to remove myself from that mindset, and kind of get myself to a point of like, can you take 2 seconds, woman, to like breathe? Like I had to actually physically tell myself, stop and breathe for a minute. Oh my God, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You can't be this high strung all the time.
Yeah. So
Which,
go ahead.
oh no, go ahead. You're good.
So like what I'm hearing is that it's actually really interesting because I'm hearing two sort of like what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, there's a really fancy word for this that I can't think of it. Two opposite things. I can't think of what the word is. There's an extra credit word that I want to use, but I can't think of it. Anyway, two sort of opposite things, which is that a lot of the time the what sort of brings the anxiety up and sort of what causes the anxiety, the word that I really heard from what you were saying is like the feeling of being overwhelmed, like this idea of
Mm-hmm.
like things piling up, having too much on
Mm-hmm.
my plate, like I'm just overwhelmed. But then at the
Mm-hmm.
same time you also have this thing where if there's nothing on your plate, you're like,
Well, it's wrong.
what's wrong, what is happening,
Something's wrong.
something
because
has to
I'm
be wrong.
because I'm so used to everything being wrong, or
Yeah.
something always being wrong, or being told that something, or I'm like, something is always wrong,
Yeah.
or I'm always doing something wrong. So when I'm actually not doing anything wrong, and I did everything perfect and everything is wonderful, my mind is trained to automatically think, no, I have to be doing something wrong.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I have to be doing something wrong.
Yes.
Um, so how long has this been going on, Hallie?
A very, 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 very long time. I couldn't necessarily tell you or pinpoint like really when it started.
What's the earliest you
Um,
can think of?
I mean, I would probably say maybe as early, maybe high school
Okay.
was when it was really bad, or when I noticed that it existed.
Do you have any
Um,
like story that you can think of it coming up in high school?
I was always known as a social butterfly, but I was always afraid of becoming friends, or I always thought, or even though someone was friends with me, I always thought that, like there was always some secret reason as to why they were friends with me, or they didn't really like it, they're just doing it because they just want to be nice. It's when my brain started randomly like putting these little tiny ideas that didn't necessarily make any sense. They like were correlated to what was going on per se, but they didn't necessarily make any sense. Like there was no direct connection to it. And when I started noticing that that was something my brain was doing, and I honed in on it, I realized, oh, like that's a weird thing to think about, but I didn't know that was a form of social anxiety.
Okay.
but I wasn't educated in that, and no one talked about it.
For
No one
sure.
talked about, mental health, or
Yeah.
especially not in school.
Yeah. Totally.
Especially
No,
not then.
not
No,
school only teaches you things that you don't need
it,
to know, like algebra.
exactly. No one had time for it, or you were just deemed crazy and whatever, and your son
Yeah.
goes to school,
Yeah.
whatever craziness. But um, I was I was not aware that that was actually a form of social anxiety, and a form of social anxiety that I was what's the phrase I'm looking for, molded into, I guess, is
Yeah.
the best way to put it. Like, it didn't
Yeah.
just come out of nowhere. It stemmed
Yeah.
from something.
Yeah. So, Hallie, I think that this is super juicy, and we could absolutely dig into this. And I just want to make sure, like, is there anything that you really wanted to? Because I sort of just jumped in, but is there anything that you really wanted to talk about today? Anything that you were excited to sort of like work on or ask me about or anything like that? Anything that I could
um
help you with?
no, because what I mentioned about being molded and everything like that, that actually has kind of something to do with what I wanted to talk about today, so it actually
Awesome.
works perfectly.
Awesome, because that's the word that I wrote down that I wanted to talk about next was
Yeah.
how were you molded?
um you could take one look at the color of my skin and answer that question.
Okay.
I I mean, let's call it as it is, and let's be raw. Let's be as raw as we can here. We're not pulling any punches. We're not in the business of doing so. I was discriminated against a lot.
Yeah.
I was told that I wasn't good enough. I was told I wasn't worthy. I was told that, you know, I'm not black enough, and my skin's not light enough. Like, there were times I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. I hated my hair. Like, I hated my hair curly. Um, you see me in pictures, and you see me wear my curly hair and no problem, but it wasn't always like that. I was always ashamed of my curly hair because I thought it didn't look as pretty as the rest of the girls. And, you know, um and that's not anything that came from necessarily like my personal household. Like, okay, my parents were incredibly loving, and very, very supportive. Um, but you find out a lot of things, down the line of, you find out that one of your grandmothers literally called your father the N word and said to never bring him back to her house again.
Yeah, that's
You
rough.
hear stuff, you hear about stuff like that, and you kind of have to be like,
Yeah. So,
hmm.
first of all, like I want to say thank you because like you're giving me so much to work with. Um, I love it. And so like I just want to sort of like make sure that I'm sort of getting the full picture. So like what I'm hearing you say is that like this social anxiety very much stemmed from the like discrimination you faced, and like because of this discrimination, like there were all of these feelings of like I'm not worthy. And then like because you're half white and half black, is that correct? Okay,
Yes.
so because you were half black and half white, you like didn't feel like you fit in like either
Mm-hmm.
culture. Like you weren't black enough for the black kids, you weren't white enough for the white kids. And
Mm-hmm.
then like even something like your hair became something that was like this source of like shame because
Yeah.
it was again sort of like this awkward in between, or like like I know I've heard like a lot of black people talk about how like their hair is just it's tough.
It is.
um
It is. It is. It's very, very tough to deal with.
yeah.
Even now, as a grown adult, it's still
Yeah.
incredibly
And
hard
so
to deal with.
even though like your parents were like incredibly loving and supportive and everything, like you still had to deal with this like sort of
the things they can control outside of their
like
own
like
life.
fundamental like disliking of who you are based on nothing else other than like the color of your skin and like how you looked.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it was, and I think it's for any other who are, you know, maybe half black or half white or half one culture, half another culture, because I'm sure a lot of people go through that are half
Yeah.
and half.
Yeah.
But it's also hard when you're constantly called a like completely different ethnicity than you are, or people just assume you're
Did they think you
a
were like
certain kind
Latina or
of.
something?
I hate that. I think it's very disrespectful. I've had Hispanic people come up to me and just start speaking Spanish to me because I look Hispanic or I look Dominican or whatever. Like, this is a thing that actually happens, and people don't believe me, or people hear stories about it and they're like, "There's no way that happens," and I'm like, "No, I'm telling you, this happens. It's
Yeah.
a thing."
Yeah.
But I think it's worse. Now I remember where my thought process was because it left me. But I
Sorry.
think it's worse when you are a woman
Hmm.
for a whole nother. That's a whole nother box by itself.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it was much harder for women, because I'm a girl, especially being an only child and being a girl, because women were always held at X beauty standard. So when you actually cannot meet a beauty standard, no matter what you do, unless you undergo surgery, it does something to a person
Yeah.
year after year.
Yeah.
It ruins a person's self-confidence. It makes them constantly question, like, no matter what change they make to themselves, is it a good enough change? Am I going to meet, society? Is society going to find me beautiful?
Yeah. Yeah. And like I mean, just, speaking of overwhelmed, Hallie, like I'm just hearing that like in terms of like all that you have on your plate, like it's not only discrimination because you're black, but it's also discrimination because you're white, and then it's also discrimination because you're a woman, and then you also have the fact that you're an only child. Like no wonder you're constantly feeling overwhelmed. Like from birth you were like stacked with this deck of like I'm gonna have to work harder than 99% of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Sounds really hard.
it's a rough realization too. The realization's is even worse.
Do you think that high school is when you realize that?
I think so.
Mm.
Um, just because, and the only reason why is just because there was another girl who I became friends with, um, who was just like me, except her mother was black and her father was white. So that was still also, even though I had all this social anxiety, I had a tiny bit of comfort in her to know
That's
that
beautiful.
she felt the same way, that she was feeling the same way, and her family was super sheltered,
Mm.
so she didn't get freedoms like I did, like, being able to drink my problem away, like, typical teenager stuff, right?
Right.
Drink my fucking problem away, or smoke some weed or whatever, because their parents were very strict.
Yeah.
Obviously that changed once she moved out, but um
Yeah, the tighter the leash, the farther they run, right?
it's true story. It's true. Or they're
Yeah.
gonna find a way to bite that leash off beforehand.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was a source of comfort to me.
Good. I'm really glad that you had that because I think that without it, I mean, yeah, it
I
just
mean,
sounds
you would have
completely
it would
overwhelming and lonely and awful.
yeah, yeah. And I'm never. I'm never alone. And that's a scary thing too.
What does that mean?
Um, how do I explain this? You know the person that you was looking at like, oh yeah, they're always making friends or they're always surrounded by people.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever you go, someone knows them.
Mm-hmm.
They know their name or they know of them or they know them even by mention. You know, they're always a person whose phone goes off about 50 times every day,
Are
each
you
day.
this person?
I am that person. My problem is that I have, I don't know if I can call it an addiction. It's not an addiction because I'm not actively trying to do it per se. People just stick like glue, just stick to me like glue or gravitate towards me. And before I realize it, I'm helping them. I'm
So
helping them, or they're my friend, and then next thing I know, I never have a moment of silence.
hmm. So there's a couple of things there that I'm hearing. One is that, like, you're a caretaker and people sort of, for lack of a better word, sort of leech a lot of the time off of you. And also, the other thing that I'm hearing is that you're constantly surrounded by people. Like, you constantly have, like, DMs coming in, or, like, like when you walk into a room, like, everyone knows who you are, everyone wants to say hi. And yet you still feel sort of profoundly lonely. Like, you don't actually, yeah.
Yeah, it's I told you, it's a weird feeling and none of it makes sense, but the reason why it doesn't make sense is because anxiety doesn't make sense.
No, no, I think it makes a lot of sense, actually, Hallie.
You're one of the first people that actually say that it actually makes sense, because to me sometimes I'm just like, am I just like out of my mind? Like, what's happening to me?
No, I mean, Hallie, like, if so, I just want to look at this sort of like energetically for a second with you, if I can get a little hippy dippy.
Yeah, sure.
Energetically, what's happening is, like, yes, you are surrounded by people, but like here, hold on. I like to draw diagrams. I'm gonna draw a little diagram.
Okay.
Okay, so this is Hallie. Okay.
That's
Okay.
me.
Okay. And so then what's happening is the energy is flowing like this.
Yes.
So no wonder you feel lonely, because there's no energy coming back.
Yeah,
So
sounds about
like you
right.
could yeah, sure, like you could be surrounded by zombies, but like they're all dead. Like they're not contributing anything to you. There's no value there, Hallie. It makes perfect sense that you feel phenomenally lonely.
You'd be surrounded by zombies and maggots are all dead. Yep, that's what zombies are. Well, I mean, technically they're not necessarily dead. They're living dead, but logistics.
There's still dead in there, okay?
It's still a rotting corpse.
It's still a rotting corpse, okay? And it's still doing nothing but eating your brain.
You're not wrong. But the other weird thing is that I can't allow myself to enjoy when other people do go ahead and try to give that energy back.
There it is.
I told you I'm self aware.
There it is. Okay, all right. Why not?
Stepping back once again, being constantly told that I was not worthy or that I did not deserve it.
Yep.
Or that I was always doing something wrong, so I could never get to that goal.
Yep.
Even though it's right in my fucking face.
So I'm gonna break your brain for a second. Are you ready?
Oh God, here we go.
What if
Okay.
what if you allow people to give back to you even though you're unworthy and even though you don't deserve it? What if we just for the sake of argument, what if we
Okay.
just like accept that you're unworthy and that you don't deserve it?
Okay.
And then people come along and want to help us. What happens?
What's accepting help, Tech? I don't know what accepting help means.
Yeah.
You know this about me.
And
I
I think so I was about to say like I think in a certain way that you accepted help today and in a past situation I think that you also accepted help, and at the same time it is still a little tangled up because like by doing this with me, like you are also helping me, so like I can see like how your clever little mind could like twist it, into like no, I'm actually helping Tech.
I'm not as clever as you give me credit for, but thank you for thinking that that I'm not clever.
So
I appreciate that.
so I think that like Hallie, if I were gonna give you one sort of like takeaway from this, at least thus far,
Mhm.
what the biggest thing that I've gotten so far is like you gotta try letting people take some stuff off your plate,
Yep.
because that's how we fix the overwhelmedness is by getting some helping hands.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah. I feel like I've heard this song. Oh, that's right. I've given the same advice to somebody else. See, that's another problem I have.
Well, okay, that's actually not what I was. That's great. That's not what I was expecting. What I was expecting was like, I feel like I've heard this advice from who was it? Oh yeah, everyone. That's what I
Well,
thought you were gonna say.
I mean that too, but that as well. You know, but most of all, I've heard it from myself.
Yeah, and
Like I've
that
heard it from my own lips. Like I
again.
know that is that needs to happen. It's
Yeah.
just getting there.
Yep. Yep. So let's talk about that. What holds you back? What keeps you from doing it?
Oh, my own. I don't know how to describe that. My own brain, I guess. There's no easy way to answer that question.
No, I. If it were easy, you would have figured it
I
out a long
wouldn't be
time ago.
here.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so
I guess it's hard to when you have okay, hold on. When you spent so long or most of your life being told X, Y, and Z and whatever, right?
mhm.
And you're struggling to try to get out of that, and still to this day, people are constantly putting you back into that hole and still telling you that same thing. It's not as easy to go against a weight that's always still constantly piling up on you.
That's beautiful. So what I'm hearing you say is that the reason that you can't let people take things off your plate is because by being vulnerable in that way, you are taking the risk that somebody is going to put you back in that hole. And like fork all if you're going back in that hole. Like no one is forking putting me back in that hole.
Yes, and I'm afraid to be vulnerable because I have been stomped on so many times and my vulnerability taken advantage of so many times that eventually you no longer want to be vulnerable in front of anybody. I
Yeah.
have a hard time being vulnerable in front of Wolf.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. So what do we do about that? Expert advice giver and helper of all. What do we do about that for Hallie?
Normally, I would tell someone to surround themselves with people who have no problem taking the time to tell you otherwise, to tell you that you are worthy and that you are appreciated and that you are loved. Um, Surrounding yourself with that constantly and having a consistent and constant reminder of that does help. It doesn't block everything out, but that does help. And finding the victories and certain things, I know especially over the past year has been a very strong um movement, um or a very strong push of the movement,
Mm-hmm.
um and that brought out a lot of internal things for me, um but also kind of made me a little bit stronger because I had people just randomly telling me that, hey, I just want to remind you that that I'm in your corner, that I have your back, that I love you and that I appreciate you. um it really helped to get past that, um and especially kind of being like stuck at home and not being able to see my friends and not really being able to see my family. All of that really helped keep me out of a really dark place.
Cool, cool. So I'm just gonna steal your advice and give it to you now. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So what I heard you say was the way that you sort of overcome that like dread of opening up because of how many times you've been hurt is that you surround yourself with reminders, surround yourself with people or things or whatever that are going to remind you of your worth and of what you actually deserve despite what has been sort of drilled into you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing that I heard you say is like celebrating your victories. So like you
Mm-hmm.
know, whenever you get up and go to the gym for the day, like you really celebrate those things, and in doing that you sort of revitalize your own worth and
Mm-hmm.
meaning, and you like that though, just like when you uh I'm a nerd, so I'm thinking of paying off credit cards. The snowball method is where you pay off the smallest credit card and then it snowballs because you pay off bigger and bigger
Oh
credit cards
yeah.
until they're all paid off. And so like similarly, like if you can celebrate your tiny victories, then over time like that, ego boost stacks, and eventually you get to a point where you're feeling good about yourself and celebrating amazing victories.
Yeah, yeah, basically. And to have people constantly reminding me that it's okay to open up, and that it's safe to open up with them.
Yeah.
And to have a constant reminder of basically just like they've never hurt you before, so like, come on, they've given you no reason. Let's go.
Yeah.
Um, there have been a couple people, um, that have helped really break that wall down. Um, and it kind of just came out of nowhere. And was kind of a flood of emotion kind
Mm-hmm.
of moment. Um, because that was the first time in a while that I had actually opened up and been that vulnerable. Um, but it was needed and it was necessary. Um, but the fact that this person still stuck by me, even through that horrible breakdown, told me everything I needed to know. Um,
Yeah.
and that was just that.
Well, honestly, Hallie, I'm really happy for you. Like, I one question I have that I just want to check in on is like just from like you being in the community for a while. Like I know that
Mhm.
there was a period of time, and I don't know if this is still going on, so I wanted to sort of check in on it, where like you were just having like pretty regular for like out of the blue like full blown anxiety attacks, and like
Mhm.
didn't feel like you really had like any like recourse. Have those
Yeah.
subsided?
For the most part, yes. When I have really bad days, those kind of flood back really easily. But they're not as common anymore. And getting back on a like kind of putting myself on a schedule, and once again adding, even adding something as simple as adding the gym, um, has kind of helped keep me back in line. Of things need to be done. I don't have time to have an anxiety attack. Like, let's go. Um, and now with having physical exercise and becoming stronger, having more energy to do that and not being as tired,
Yeah.
um, has really helped. So they really all go hand in hand. When people say that they don't, and no, everything, I swear, everything is connected together. Everything is works simultaneously. If one thing is off, everything's gonna be off. So
Preach.
yeah.
um and so what I'm here what I'm hearing is that uh the anxiety attacks have gone down, which is fantastic because like
Yeah.
when something that severe is going on, like yeah, like let's get rid of the
Yeah.
symptom. Like screw whatever's
Yeah.
causing it. Let's just get rid of the symptom first, and then we can work on whatever's causing it. And the other part that I'm hearing is that still when you do nothing,
Mm-hmm.
this stuff sort of creeps up.
Yes.
And I am less inclined to think that it is because of like the sort of dam of emotions, which is sort
Mm-hmm.
of what I theorized at first when like I would hear you talk about it like in Discord or whatever, because of what you've said about how like you've really sort of like let that dam go a couple of times now in a really sort of profound way, and like even talking to you now, I feel like there's less sort of there's less behind the floodgates,
Yeah.
um, and and more inclined to think that those that those attacks are really coming from this sort of still existing like profound sense of like unworthiness or undeservedness or that sort of thing. Does that sound
Mm-hmm.
right to you?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that sounds about right.
Because I
And it's a
do.
hard,
Go ahead.
and I know that in my particular case, it's such a hard thing to get past or work past, because it does stem from something that is completely outside of my control.
Being
It's a
like the
and
being the color of your skin and
Yeah,
and
exactly.
being a
Um,
woman.
and I can't control society, and I can't control society's thoughts.
Right.
Um, you know, uh, so it's kind of like, I hate to say it, but having to come to terms with the fact of these people are out there and they will actively try to hurt you, but the only way to hurt them back is to be stronger, is something I've been trying to drill into my own head, because I know that's going to be the only way that I'm going to be able to get past it, because it's never going to completely go away. I think if it was going to completely go away, it's beyond any of our lifetimes. Um, many, 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 many lifetimes out there. But in the meantime, the least I can do is make their lives a little bit more miserable by being happy.
Yeah. Ooh, ooh. There's so much here. Um, Hallie,
you and
are
all of it.
the anxiety attacks, it may just be a part of it, and tell me if it is, but like one of the things that I'm really curious about is like, are the anxiety attacks fear based? Like when you're doing nothing, like do you feel naturally unsafe?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. It's a general fear of feeling unsafe constantly.
Well, Fork,
It
that's a lot harder. That's a lot harder,
is a
Hallie.
lot harder to say.
Because like if it were a feeling of unworthiness or undeservedness, like that's yourself. Like that's easier.
Yeah,
We can talk about that and sort of like work on that.
yeah,
When it's like just being terrified that society is going to hurt you because of the color of your skin or the fact that you have tits, like that makes it a lot
yeah,
harder.
yeah. And that's the thing that I don't think a lot of people understand, which was also part of the reason why I wanted to do this.
Yeah.
Was because I want people to understand the the effects of what is going on, and that it is a very very real thing, and that it has very very real consequences on people. um uh yeah, it's just, it's a hard thing to have to go through, and I know that there's probably a lot of people that are probably going to understand exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
um but it's hard to want to walk out of your house when you know that there is a person that wants you dead.
Okay, so I need you to watch me carefully here because I'm a straight presenting, I'm not, but I'm straight presenting white male, and
Yeah.
like I need you to like, sort of like check my privilege every step of the way here and like make sure that I don't, like call me out if I fork up here, okay?
Hmm.
Here's my question. It's two. There's two questions. The first question is, what can what can people who want to do something about this do that are privileged?
Speak out. That's all. Like that's literally all we ask for. We don't ask for you to hold pitchforks and torches. Let us do that. We'll do that. We got it. They got us clocked for that apparently as it is. So I think we're good. But speak out. Use your voice because you're privileged. You have the privilege of people wanting to just naturally listen to you.
Yeah.
So to use that platform and to use that privilege to your advantage to speak out against something that is so wrong, of people literally treating others not like people, you need to be the one to have the bigger balls to stand up and say, hey, that's a little bullshit. It's a
Yeah.
little fucked up.
Yeah.
You need to stop talking that shit. And the more people that do speak out against it, the less of a voice the rest will have. And I know it's scary, but people have to remember that we've been doing this. I mean, I'm using we in quotations, obviously, but we've been doing this for a very fucking long time. And we're
Well,
very fucking tired.
it's not just that. It's also that like I mean, just from what you're talking about, like sure, like it might be scary for privileged white men to speak out, but like on the other hand, like you have a like diagnosed anxiety disorder because you're so afraid of existing in this world. So like
Mm-hmm.
let
I think I got you beat there on the dick measuring contest.
Okay, all right. And so, okay. And then this is the part that I'm a little bit more worried about, like my privilege showing. But it is
Okay.
that, like you said, this
Hmm.
problem probably post dates our lifetime.
Yes.
And I'm just not willing to accept the reality, Hallie, you have to you have to live in either constant motion with no rest or paralyzing fear during rest for the rest of your life. There's gotta be some other solution that where we slash you can help you now. What do you think about that?
I would love for it to be that simple.
I don't. I okay. Maybe simple. Not easy. I do not want to imply that this is easy in any way. I think okay. Really important. I know it's not easy. I know it's not easy at all. And
um, it's finding comfort in things in the situation and the situations that you are in. It is technically unrealistic for my brain to constantly think that I'm walking out of my house and someone is going to kill me. That's it's a little out there. I'm not saying it's not 0%, but it's not 0% for anybody, right?
yeah.
But people don't live in paralyzing fear of that. So it's more or less trying to put myself, making sure that I'm always in a position of feeling safe in some way, shape, or form. Whether that be I don't usually like going to the store unless I'm with Wolf. For example, having him nearby makes me feel safe. I carry around uh you know uh pepper spray um everywhere I go. It's on my car. It's on my keychain. I don't go anywhere unless I have my pepper spray. That makes me feel secure and safe, and it makes me feel anchored. Um, so finding little things like that to help me, um, I guess, live like a normal human being is, in quotations, is what is going to get me through every day until things really start changing. Because, like I said, that kind of stuff is a little bit outside of my hand. I have personally done a lot to try to actively make a change, but
I have to look up a quote in the middle of our tantra because I think it's really important. That okay. So, Einstein has a quote. He's white. Dang it. Einstein has a quote that says, "You cannot simultaneously prevent and prepare for war. The very prevention of war requires more faith, courage, and resolution than are needed to prepare for war."
yep.
So, again, like when it comes to like paralyzing fear, like fork it, like let's get rid of the symptoms first and then like work from there.
Right.
But like I do just want to like call attention to that, like unfortunately, like I feel like the things that make you feel safe are all about like preparing for war, like having a strong white man next to you and having pepper spray next to you. And again, like I like do it because like you know it But like
Which
I
it's
just
hard for you to believe that that's something that I have
no no
that I
no no
have.
no no. I totally believe it. I totally believe it. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm trying to say is like I want to I want to try to help you and sort of like work through with you like what like some of the things that we might be able to do to make you feel safe that don't involve preparing for war. Does that make sense?
It
Not
does.
Go ahead.
It does make sense, except for the fact that one of those things is not you can't control,
Which
which is
is the
another
war.
human being.
Yeah.
No, another human being.
Yeah.
You can't control what another human being does. Um, and that is unfortunate. But that's the thing is that if you think of it on a normal scale, that's something that everybody has to live with. The
Yeah,
fear
and yours
that
is
they
definitely
can't control.
magnified.
Exactly. The only difference is that people are a little bit more proud of their actions in regards to those of my skin tone and
That's
darker.
that's what I mean. Yeah.
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 So until that is changed, that is not something that's able to necessarily be changed or controlled just between, me and you. Um Unfortunately on that front, it it's a lot bigger of a war
No, I
than
think
just
that you're absolutely right. And like you're saying something really profound that I think is important that you know, I think that everyone should know, which is that like ultimately like we cannot we have no control over other like what other people do. We have no control over like what happens in the world or what happens to us. All that the only thing that we have control over is like our actions and our
yep,
experience of what happens.
yep.
And so I I guess what yeah, and like oh god, I feel like I'm walking a tightrope right now. So please just like, you know, feel
Sorry,
free to
kitty cleanser.
yeah, like we're coming up for air with a kitty. Um
Kitty.
Feel free to like punch me in the face if I lean too far to the wrong side of the tightrope. Um I guess what I'm saying is, you know, like Hali is as we continue to work together either in these tantras, you know, if you decide to continue or like um or just, you know, like knowing each other in, you know, through the Twitches and the Discords and all the
Yeah,
places. Um I I would
there.
I would like to try to help make it so that okay, I'm gonna give a parallel metaphor because I'm getting paralyzed in PC-ness. So I'm gonna give a parallel metaphor that I'm a little bit more comfortable with. Okay.
Okay. Word.
So one of the things that I've learned and that I actually really love about moon cycles
Mm-hmm.
is that moon cycles are this like really beautiful time. Well, not I mean hard, very hard and difficult, but beautiful time where like everything that someone is going through is like magnified to the
Yeah.
max. And because of that, I actually think that it's a really good time for reflection. It's a really good time to sort of like reflect on what's going on in your life and sort of like just like look at all the pieces because they're all so big and easy to see at that time.
Right.
Like I think that like meditation during moon cycles can be really helpful, and it is also a terrible time for action to like make big decisions in your life. Terrible time to do that
Yes.
because everything is so magnified.
Yes.
So similarly, like are there threats to your safety that are much more pronounced because of the color of your skin and your gender? 100% absolutely. Anyone who denies that is absolutely crazy. And and I think that the part that you can control, which is your perception, is magnified like as if it were on moon cycle, like 24/7.
Right.
And that's the part that I'm really interested in, sort of
Ah ha ha ha. Yes, now I
in
understand what you're getting at.
in helping you
Here.
feel more
Yeah.
safe, is like is like yeah, you said you get what I'm
Okay.
getting at. I wish that I could express this
Yeah.
more eloquently.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm shooting a cow.
No, 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 you're all good.
um,
The
but no,
kid
no, no. I get exactly where you're coming from. I know exactly. You're trying. Yes. Yes. The fact that I have this terror or paralyzing fear, you want to try to shrink it down a little bit
because like,
to a
you
more
know,
manageable size.
no, no, no,
It's
because
not
like
going to be.
all like like every unfortunately every single like black person out there has to deal with this
Yeah.
crap.
Yes.
And like a lot of them, like, you know, don't they don't have full on panic attacks when they aren't doing anything. And so like that's the piece that I think when I talked about sort of like finding ways to make you feel safe, and like that aren't like preparing for war, like that's really sort of what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Hallie.
Sorry, I give you a hard one.
No, I feel like I was actually about to apologize as well, because I feel like I gave you a lot of I feel like I gave you a half answer. I feel like I gave you a cliffhanger.
No, I mean not necessarily.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah,
Do you think do you what I'm pitching? Do you think it's possible for
I'm
you?
willing to try. I mean, I'm willing to try. I
That
mean,
was
I
my
think
question.
anything's possible.
Okay, I'm gonna
I
ask
think
it one more
anything's
time.
possible.
I'm gonna ask it one more time. What I'm pitching, do you think it's possible?
For me personally,
Yes.
I can't answer yes or no. I can only say maybe.
So here's the really interesting part about that. I'm not asking like, will it definitely happen? Could we
Mm-hmm.
accomplish it? That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, do you think it's possible? And you can't even answer yes, it might be possible. And
Yeah.
I think that that's the first like step that we have to take, is like we have to move like this idea from like I'm just gonna say it, Hallie. I don't think you think it's possible. From that into yes, it's possible. I still think it's highly unlikely. It's highly unlikely that it will ever happen. You're probably never gonna do it, but it might be possible. I think that's the first step that we have to take.
Okay.
Do you want it to be possible?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Who doesn't want a solution to our problems?
Well, of course. Of course.
See, I wouldn't be here if the answer to that question was no.
Okay. All right. Well,
I absolutely want it to be possible.
me too. And let me say to you that I absolutely think that it is. And not because, I mean, it's partially because, but not because I'm a privileged white man. But 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 because I have seen other people who are not privileged like me go through similar journeys and accomplish what I'm talking about. Um so I have faith. I have a lot of belief. Um
Mm.
and I deeply hope that even if you can't, and I think this is right up your alley, you're gonna love this. Even if you can't believe it for yourself, that you can believe it because I want to believe it and you want to support me.
Oh,
See,
you're mean.
see what I did there? I
Yeah,
used your caretaker instinct against you.
see, see, this is why. This is why I can't do this with another Libra because of this shit. This bullshit. This
Okay.
fucking shit right here. Call my ass out.
So, is there anything else, like any like questions you want to ask, or like anything else that you want to, that's really it. Any questions you want to ask, comments you want to make, anything like that before we sort of like wrap up here?
No, I mean not necessarily.
You sure?
Not that I could think of. What? Why are you giving me that look for?
I just wanted to make sure. Okay. All right. Well,
Don't
how
fucking
was
give
this
me.
for you?
This is fine. I mean, I was very, very nervous,
Yeah?
as I am nervous about everything. Um, don't give me that look. The heads of the really? You think? Yeah, no, I know. As I am about everything, um, I was nervous, um, but I knew what I wanted to talk about, and then got completely derailed from it because that's what happens to me, which was fine. Um, but I thought I knew what I was gonna come in here and really talk about, and then I was like, I got half of it, and that's good enough for me. I was halfway correct on what I was talking about and what I was sure about, and the other half was just like, all right, well, this is happening now.
What was it that you wanted to talk about?
I don't even know how to describe it really. Um, Mostly more. I don't even know how to really to word it per se.
Okay.
Um,
What was the half that we got to?
well, the fact of where a lot of my anxiety and social anxiety stems from,
Mm.
um, which was just a mistreatment of myself. Um, oh, I really thought we were going to talk about some really like traumatic shit, which I was totally prepared to talk about, mind you, completely ready to talk about. But I was like ready to talk about that, and then we didn't talk about that, which is fine, like I said. So it worked
W-
out in my favor anyway.
It, all right, crazy question, real quick. Were you less ready to talk? Like, was it more jarring talking about what we did talk about than talking about the trauma that you were prepared to talk about?
No,
Okay.
no. And I think the reason why is because this issue that all of this is stemming from, or a big part of the issue that this is all stemming from, is something that I've come to terms with for quite a while.
Yeah.
um so I was expecting it to be more of like a side talk, and it ended up becoming more of a focal point. um but I was aware, like I said, I'm very self-aware.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I guess is kind of scary in and by itself.
Yeah.
I am aware of how scary my anxiety is,
Hmm.
and that scares the shit out of me.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you're okay with it, I'm just gonna give sort of like a brief summary of what we talked about for like
You
anyone who watches this slash like for for you if it's helpful.
yeah,
Um, so we started out talking about how like you're actually feeling a lot better, which is heckin' awesome. And
yeah,
like your good days are great, and then your bad days are less bad, which is awesome.
mhm,
And a big part of what has contributed to that is like physical exercise and eating well.
mhm,
And that being said, you still do struggle with this sort of like umbrella term of anxiety. And what we sort of
mhm,
like delved into and found is that your anxiety really sort of stems from this feeling of like overwhelmedness. And I think that a big part of that overwhelmedness, a huge part of that overwhelmedness, like probably the biggest item on the plate, the turkey at the Thanksgiving dinner of your anxiety, is the discrimination that you faced and still face to this day, and the
yep,
sort of paralyzing fear that and at any point if you go out into the world that you're going to be murdered or discriminated against or hated or etc.
yep,
Um, and uh, and so one of the big things that we talked about is like allowing people to like start taking things off your plate and sort of and I think that this I didn't really touch on this a whole lot, but I think that this allowing of people to take things off your plate will also start is one of the methods that we can use to sort of like prepare for peace instead of preparing
mhm,
for war.
right,
In that, like if we like you said, if we surround ourselves with people that are loving and supporting and show up for us, then all of a sudden the world seems a lot less scary because we have people there that have our back. That like
yes,
if we do run into the one of those people that we can't control because we can only control our own experiences and our own actions, that we have other people there that we trust in their actions and their experiences to have our back.
mhm,
And yeah, and then just as sort of like a call to action for anybody who is, looks like me, um uh if you look like me, like this is part of the reason why it's so important to like use our privilege for good. Like I'm a big proponent that I think that like everyone deserves compassion, and so I don't like this idea. Not that you were suggesting this at all, Hallie, but I don't like this idea that like um you know I don't know that like white people don't have a right to suffer or something because like they're white. I think that
mhm.
everyone deserves compassion and like and everything, but like at the same time I
Everyone
do think
deserves to
that
be treated like a human.
yeah, but at the same time I do think that like those with privilege have a responsibility to use that privilege to like help. um and so yeah. The last thing that I want to say, Hallie, do you have? I always ask this, and some people do, and some people don't. Do you have anything that you would like um, to promote, sell out, something that you're proud of that you'd like to like have a link in the description or anything like that?
No, but I do have something that I do want to say really, really quickly.
Shoot.
Um, to anybody who may be going through something similar, if not exactly the same, issues as I am, and anybody who has suffered through discrimination or have been hurt by discrimination, I just need you all to be aware and you know that you are heard, you are loved, you are beautiful, you are perfect exactly the way you are, and most importantly, it's something I still need to teach myself, but you are worthy. You're worthy to, you know, walk walk the streets without being afraid. Um, you deserve to be protected like everybody else. You deserve to be in your homes and not be discriminated against in your own homes. You know, and you deserve love, and you know, you deserve your own happiness. So just keep trying to remind yourself of that every day. I know it's hard. You know, I know we run into a lot of things in the media that tell us otherwise, but just try your hardest to look yourself in the mirror and you know, tell yourself that you're worthy and that you're beautiful.
Thanks, Hallie. I'm gonna make you watch that section back once I put up the tantra.
I know you will. I know you will.
All right. Thank you so much for doing this with me. Like I said, I have a lot of hope and faith in you.
Thank you. I
All right.
appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye.